At the push of a button, Lexus automatically adjusts everything back just the way you like it. So all you really have to adjust is your thinking. Why even think about buying a car anymore when you can have an invention?
Boring, a word we oftentimes use in the car community to describe something that's not exciting to drive. Pretty simple, right? Many car companies try to keep the enthusiast in mind when they're creating a car. But the fact of the matter is that we're the minority, not the majority. And in this video, we're probably going to have to dissect something that we don't exactly want to talk about, but it ties into another thing. Lexus, for all intents and purposes, has been the #1 leader in luxury automobiles in terms of volume and sales. No other car brand has the reputation for reliability and quality quite like Lexus. It's always been that way. It's always been that for Lexus. They are a company that focuses on high quality control, durable parts, supreme reliability, and extensive testing to ensure that their cars get the most mileage for every dollar that a consumer spends. And that's exactly why it seems a bit boring. You see, for many of us enthusiasts, we like excitement, we like power, that's not the average consumer. The average consumer only cares about a few things, perhaps some Bluetooth, a little camera, fuel efficiency. But for many people, they simply do not care about all of the things that makes your car exciting. And that is where we have to talk about the discrepancy in Lexus. Has it become boring, or is it just that we don't like the products that's being pushed out? What's up, guys? My name is Chris, and welcome to The Breakdown, where we talk about everything cars, news, and reviews. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. I did a poll last week, and of course, you guys, as always choose. And the one that I figured you guys were going to go with was going to be indeed Lexus. Lexus has been around since 1989 and has pumped out some amazing products, and it is almost undeniable that Lexus has made an impact to the automotive industry as a whole, with such things such as the first 8-speed automatic transmission, the first hybrid luxury powertrain, as well as some of the most exciting yet legendary inline sixes known to man. Lexus has definitely made their mark. But as of recently, many people have complained that they're resting on their laurels and they're not exactly who they used to be. And in this video, I want to take a look into that. So with that being said, stick around and stay tuned, because you are now watching The Breakdown. Alrighty. Okay. So before we get started, I want to emphasize this. Boring is a state of thought. It's not necessarily something to be, critical of. And in this video, I will be as objective as possible without being subjective. So if you have something subjective to say, just keep it objective in the comments and keep it critical. Don't be too hard on Lexus. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video. So I'm going to say this as delicately as possible. The 1973 gas crisis ruined everything. It didn't ruin everything. It just changed our perspective. Between 1973 and 1983, the imports absolutely take over and completely changed the way that we as Americans buy cars and what we look for in a car. It used to be in the earlier part of the 1900s into the mid 1950s that we liked power. We liked excitement. We liked those big gas guzzling land yachts. It couldn't get enough of Unc's Cadillac. But as time went on, and with the Clean Air Act of 1970, the gas crisis of 1973, as well as the regulated CAFE, which is the corporate average for fuel economy, was put into place. It changed a lot, and it was the perfect opportunity for Japanese competitors to come in alongside the German competitors to come in and dominate the market. It's kind of ironic because we were just facing them in World War II, but a little skeptical in my opinion, but whatever. For 1973, the Corolla really was the pace setter for Toyota, as the Civic was the pace setter for Honda, and Datsun, alongside many other Japanese brands, came into the market. Mitsubishi had to go through the back door and use the American car companies as well as Mazda, but that's a whole different story. Between 1973 and 1983, the American car companies are struggling to figure it out, and the Japanese competitors have figured it out. They understand packaging, they understand fuel efficiency, and they understand value, all intertwined into one lump-sided four-wheel package. think I said that right. Towards the 1980s is when Toyota decides they want to do something different. The chairperson at the time, y'all know I can't say names right, Mr. H.E. Toyota basically challenged the company to create something that was the world's best. Labeled the F1, the first Lexus in place in 1983, was supposed to be the idea of we can do it better and we can be the best. At the time, they were going against the benchmark, the heavy hitter, the one that was on everybody's partnership. Ding, 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 ding. Daimler. And Mercedes-Benz with the W126 was the one to outpace. For Lexus, in many cases, this went into a lot of development and a lot of excitement. Over 2,000 people were assembled to this team with over 400 prototypes, and the Lexus LS would eventually come to fruition after 7 years of development. And the crazy thing is that just a few years prior, Acura had just released their luxury brand, and this was a renaissance for luxury Japanese imports because Infiniti would soon come after. In the time that the Lexus LS first debuted, you had to be there. I wasn't even there. I was just born. And I even came out on time so that this Lexus could be debuted to the world. Capturing the world with a 4-liter rear-wheel drive V8, nothing had ever been seen like it before. It was so quiet. It was so crazy. The Mercedes-Benz executives were absolutely appalled, shook, bamboozled, swindled.
It's losing money!
Whatever you want to call it. They were pissed. And so Toyota knew that Lexus was the one that was going to be it. So much so that they had released 2 other models down the road, which would be the SC300 as well as the ES250. Now the ES250 was a bit of a derivative of the Camry, but when Lexus initially dropped this lineup, they knew that they had something special. Whether it was a V6 or whether it was a V8, the entire enterprise of Lexus was that they knew how to make things refined. And that's what made it exciting. So much so that later on we'll get 2 other models, which would be the GS and the IS. And those were supposed to be more of the sporty inline 6. And so the thing was that Lexus offered you refinement, but it offered you performance. This was a very exciting time for Lexus, and no other company could outpace Lexus. The Lexus LS was such a big deal, in fact, that because of its reliability and its reputation at launch, they couldn't keep them on the shelves. The interesting thing about the Lexus LS is that it was so impactful that this, alongside the Mercedes-Benz S-Class, is how you got the certified pre-owned programs that you have today, because they had to incentivize people to bring them back and trade them in because they were just that reliable. But it was so crazy that the Lexus was that reliable, and reliability and performance typically don't go hand in hand. You have to choose one or the other. And so towards the mid 2000s, we see almost a shift. And the critical component about Lexus that really changed the game for Lexus is that the RX absolutely dominated and crushed the SUV market in a world where SUVs were just kind of coming up, and the SUV and the RX absolutely went crazy. Now, this is towards the 1999-2000 era where everything's changing. Towards the mid to later 2000s, Lexus begins to go over a shift. And we begin to see not so much hard lines, we begin to see a lot more softer lines. Their engines are dead bulletproof reliable. Their quality, with the exception of the recalls that occurred during that time, were pretty much flawless with the exception of that gas pedal. Aside from the oil consumption and the gas pedal acceleration recall issue, for the most part, Lexus was flawless. You couldn't say anything about it. But as time went on, Lexus sales began to shift away from their popularity, particularly as we began to enter into the phase of hybridization and electrification. Granted, Lexus, unlike many of the other brands, has still remained at the top. But in terms of what is boring and what is exciting, we have to dig a little bit deeper. You see, unlike many other car companies, Lexus chooses to focus on durability. I believe I was told at one point that the Lexuses and Toyotas that were engineered and designed were mainly focused on surviving a third world country. I don't know how true that is. It's very anecdotal, but I will say it made sense. And one of the things that Lexus, unlike many other car makers, do is focus on high quality parts. In doing so, that also is going to cost you a little bit more in production. And for those high quality parts, they have to make sure that they are of the top tier reliability because the average person typically keeps their Lexus over 250,000 miles, or it can go beyond that and very easily at that. Toyota is very hell-bent on the perception of reliability, and that was at the forefront of everything that Lexus did, in addition to refinement, in addition to quality. Now, whenever you have such high quality parts, it also requires you to reduce the amount of performance, to reduce the stress that goes into the engine. Unlike your German counterparts and unlike your American counterparts, Japanese companies tend to dial the power back. They could bring the power up to speed, but when you put the engine up to its highest stress points, it can create some performance issues. And that's one of the things that Lexus has always done, is make sure that they dial their engines back so that it has a long life. Now, whether or not that's exciting or not, completely irrelevant, but it does allow for them to continue to be reliable and quality focused as they have been. The other thing is that even though they have these long-standing reputations for quality and reliability, that also comes at a cost at change. Whenever you change a car up to a very certain point, for example, most cars in terms of development of life cycle usually go from conception to production within 45 years, and then another 6 years goes by typically before a new cycle comes in. And Toyota has done something that Honda has done in the sense that is more evolutionary than revolutionary. And when you do something as revolutionary like you see with the German and American counterparts, you also can see that Lexus does not want to deviate from what works. And the real problem is that in doing what is tried and true and refining those processes and making sure that everything is working up to spec, it doesn't leave much room for innovation. Innovation is truly what makes things exciting. Now, I will be frank, and I will say this to be fair, most consumers do not care whether or not a car is exciting. That is an enthusiast trope, and we have to be conscious of that when we talk about what is exciting. But that doesn't mean that drive has to be boring. But the focus for Lexus is not to be exciting, but to be engineered. And there have been some very exciting models that have come from Lexus. ISF, the GSF, the LFA, the RCF, any of the F line, not F Sport, that's ghetto. The F line is phenomenal. People still pine after the ISF because basically everybody knew that that was the one that you wanted if you wanted a tight, compact vehicle with a big 5-liter V8. Absolutely crazy. But for many of the cars that Lexus offers, they are not exciting, and they're not supposed to be. They're supposed to be a balance of performance as well as reliability. That doesn't go without saying that a lot of these cars that Lexus produce is mostly volume focused, which also means is that they can't focus on the nooks and crannies of what we as enthusiasts want, as many of us are the minority, not the majority. I know, it sucks. Being that Lexus has really tried to change and shift where they're focusing their efforts on, going away from internal combustion engines into hybridization. Hybridization and fuel efficiency are quite honestly boring things to think about. And if we're being honest, hybrids can be exciting. I remember the Kia Optima when it first came out in 2013, that particular hybrid, when that came out, it was very exciting to drive. Maybe I was the only one, and I don't even like Kias like that. But the Kia Optima at the time, when I drove it, almost 200 horsepower, chef's kiss. But the thought of hybridization and electrification, quite frankly, is boring. And that's where a lot of us are conflating what is boring and what is not. And it also goes without saying that Lexus puts a lot of effort and energy into making sure that they're of the highest quality and standard. And it also costs a lot of money. And in expending a lot of money, you also can't afford to take a loss, which is where Toyota/Lexus tends to veer and think about long term, how long do we want to keep this design and how long do we want to keep this car on the road? There's a reason why you see many cars such as the LS and the ES and the GS in some cases still on the road, whereas you do not see the same as the Lincolns and the Infinitis. All of those cars from the early 90s to 2000s, you just don't see them on the road like that anymore, but you still see the Lexuses. It's just not an exciting car to drive. But the truth is, those cars really are not for us. and as an enthusiast, as someone who absolutely loves the excitement of performance, we have to understand who their demographic is, which is really older people with money. Y'all let me hold $20. But because of those things, it makes it a difficult expense for Lexus and Toyota to make not so boring cars and to make them quote unquote more exciting. Lexus cars are not so much boring, they just meet what sells. And at the end of the day, that is what is important. But you guys leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about Lexus. If you think they've gotten boring, because quite frankly, I think they have gotten a little stale Not necessarily boring, but a little stale. And hopefully in the future, with the excitement, with the opportunity of hybridization and electrification, we may get something special, but don't hold your breath. And with that being said, until the next video, I will see you guys later.